US and UK launch heavy strikes on Houthi sites in Yemen. The airstrikes, meant to deter attacks on ships in the Red Sea, came one day after the United States struck at other Iran-backed militias in Iraq and Syria. The United States and Britain carried out large-scale military strikes on Saturday against multiple sites in Yemen controlled by Houthi militants, according to a statement from the two countries and 6 allies. As the Biden administration continued its reprisal campaign in the Middle East targeting Iran-backed militias, the attacks against 36 Houthi targets at 13 sites in northern Yemen came barely 24 hours after the United States carried out a series of military strikes against Iranian forces and the militias they support at 7 sites in Syria and Iraq. American and British warplanes, as well as Navy Tomahawk cruise missiles, hit deeply buried weapons storage facilities, missile systems and launchers, air defense systems, and radars in Yemen, the statement said. Australia, Bahrain, Denmark, Canada, the Netherlands, and New Zealand provided support, which officials said included intelligence and logistics assistance. These precision strikes are intended to disrupt and degrade the capabilities that the Houthis use to threaten global trade and the lives of innocent mariners, and are in response to a series of illegal, dangerous, and destabilizing Houthi actions since previous coalition strikes, the statement said, referring to major attacks by the United States and Britain last month. The attacks were the second-largest salvo since the Allies first struck Houthi targets on January 11th. They came after a week in which the Houthis had been particularly defiant, launching several attack drones and cruise and ballistic missiles at merchant vessels and U.S. Navy warships in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. The American-led air and naval strikes began last month in response to dozens of Houthi drone and missile attacks against commercial shipping in the Red Sea since November. The Houthis claim their attacks are in protest of Israel's military campaign against Hamas in Gaza. The United States and several allies had repeatedly warned the Houthis of serious consequences if the salvos did not stop. But the U.S.-led strikes have so far failed to deter the Houthis from attacking shipping lanes to and from the Suez Canal that are critical for global trade. Hundreds of ships have been forced to take a lengthy detour around southern Africa, driving up costs. Our military operations against the Zionist entity will continue until the aggression against Gaza stops, no matter what sacrifices it demands from us, a senior Houthi official said in response to the latest attacks. We will meet escalation with escalation. While the Biden administration maintains that it is not looking to widen the war in the region, the strikes over the past 2 days represent an escalation. In scope, the strikes in Yemen were roughly the size of U.S. and British attacks on January 22nd, but smaller than the salvos on January 11th, officials said. The strikes on Saturday came after a back-and-forth exchange of more limited attacks in the previous 36 hours between the Houthis and U.S. forces in the Red Sea and nearby waters. At about 10:30 a.m. local time on Friday, the destroyer Carney shot down a drone flying over the Gulf of Aden. 6 hours later, the United States attacked 4 Houthi attack drones that the military's Central Command said were about to launch and threaten merchant ships in the Red Sea. At about 9:20 p.m., U.S. forces struck cruise missiles in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen after determining they presented a threat to vessels in the region, Central Command said in another release. And about 5 hours after that, early Saturday, the destroyer Laboon and Fa-18 attack planes shot down 7 drones flying over the Red Sea. Then on Saturday night, before the planned strikes, the United States hit 6 Houthi anti-ship cruise missiles as they were being prepared to launch against ships in the Red Sea, Central Command said. So far, the Biden administration has been trying to chip away at the ability of the Houthis to menace merchant ships and military vessels without killing large numbers of Houthi fighters and commanders, which could potentially unleash even more mayhem into a widening war. I don't see how these airstrikes achieve U.S. objectives or avoid further regional escalation, said Stacey Philbrick Yadav, a Yemen specialist at Hobart and William Smith Colleges. While they may degrade Houthi capabilities in the short term, the group's leadership has vowed to continue its Red Sea attacks and to retaliate in response to these airstrikes. Saturday's strikes came as the U.S. military had begun assessing the dozens of airstrikes it conducted Friday night that hit 85 targets at 7 sites in Iraq and Syria. The strikes were in retaliation for a drone attack on a remote outpost in Jordan last Sunday that killed 3 American soldiers. Washington has suggested that an Iran-linked Iraqi militia, Kataib Hezbollah, was behind that attack. Syria and Iraq said Friday's strikes killed at least 39 people, 23 in Syria and 16 in Iraq, a toll that the Iraqi government said included civilians. The multiple strikes left the region on edge, though analysts said they seemed designed to avoid a confrontation with Iran by focusing on the operational capabilities of the militias. "We do not seek conflict in the Middle East or anywhere else," the U.S. Defense Secretary, Lloyd J. Austin III, said after the Friday strikes. "But the president and I will not tolerate attacks on American forces." The reaction from Iranian officials to Friday's round of strikes was condemnatory but not inflammatory. A foreign ministry spokesman, Nasser Kanani, said the U.S. attacks represented another strategic mistake, but did not speak about striking back. Syria and Iraq denounced the U.S. strikes in their countries as violations